Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here. You know, there's different hands in life. There's diamond hands. There's Midas touch. There is also what we call in Mexico sometimes stomach hands. That everything you touch turns into crap. And it's been a rough year for crypto. And maybe I'll be a party pooper, but I'll be speaking about CBDCs and stablecoins and what's wrong with them. Right, so I'm Thierry Arys Ruiz. I'm the CEO and founder of AgAu, AgAu, one token backed by Silver AG, one token backed by Gold AU. But in this case, I will be taking the role of the managing director of the American Institute for Economic Research, the Bastiat Society Switzerland. It's a think tank, a libertarian think tank. And occasionally, I also do lectures at the University of Geneva, and I also are part of the member expert team. This is a task force for the UNITU, is the United Nations Telecommunications Union, where there is a task force for CBDCs, where different central banks do CBDC projects, and I'm trying to push as much as possible for privacy and try to make the case for private money rather than government-run money. So with this, we're going to go through a little bit of an overview of the basics, but the basics in terms of economics, okay? So I think it's fundamental to remember that Austrian economics, so supply-side economics, and also free market, classical liberal economics, you can maybe recognize Karl Menger, who's kind of a founder libertarian, but also from Friedrich Hayek, who advocated the destruction of the monopoly of money by the government, essentially a free competition of monies, and also Ludwig von Mises, obviously, that advocates free markets, and finally Murray Rothbard, who's classified sometimes as an anarcho-capitalist. But either way, you know, those philosophies, those thoughts, those economic theories value individual freedom, spontaneous order, and essentially advocate for money that is not created by the state, but that emerges naturally as a commodity. That's the Wealth of Nation of Adam Smith was taking gold as money. So monetary manipulation of the state has harmful consequences. We've seen this in the financial crisis. We're seeing that time and time again. So I think it was important to simply read a quote that summarized it all, which is, no government is capable politically or intellectually to provide exactly the amount of money which is needed to fuel the economic development. So Hayek, we theorizing the denationalization of money with the Hayek Bank back in the days, saying that he's all in favor to take from the government the monopoly on issuing money and allowing competing institutions, private and public, to issue competing monies that, and so the people can decide. So I don't want to fight with the Bitcoin maxis. I don't want to fight with anybody. But you know, I think it's fundamental to agree at least on that the more competition of money, the more free choice, the better it is. So of course, I have to speak about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is very important because it is the one that plants the seed to challenge government control over money. And in this particular paper, the peer-to-peer electronic cash system, so I kind of ripped off the thing, and with AgAu, we consider that we're doing electronic peer-to-peer money system. So I have written a paper that you can see on the website, agao.io. It's about the taxonomy of money. Taxonomy of money was revised by the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, where you can see the matrix between those who are public money versus private money, peer-to-peer money versus electronic money, and convertible or not. So you have a whole plethora. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can look at what it is. In this case, you have a peer-to-peer. With Bitcoin, you can see it's peer-to-peer. It's outside of the public realm, and it's electronic, yet it's not convertible into gold. When you look at the vast history of money, you just basically know that it went from barter to electronic money, but there's still fundamental problems as to how money is made. So I want to make the distinction between cash and money, between fiat and money, because I think the purpose of blockchain fundamentally is to provide an alternative to fiat. And so an alternative to fiat, when you look at the track record of history, fiat actually is, when we depart from the gold standard in 1971, Nixon says, we are suspending temporarily the convertibility of dollars into gold. At the time, $35 an ounce for 1971. 50 years later, we see now gold trading at $2,000 an ounce. It's not gold that's going up, it's the money that's going down. And it doesn't matter if you compare the euro, the dollar, the pound, and the sterling, and the renminbi, it all looks like they're in a band, but really when you compare them to real money, to gold, they all go down. And that's important to remember. It's not even 50 years, and it actually has performed better than real estate. $35, $2,000. Real estate, you need to invest. You need to maintain it. So it is really a symptomatic of there's a problem in money. We don't have money anymore. Money targets, literally, they tell you, the central banks, we want at least 2% inflation, which means that over a course of 10, 20, 50 years, sometimes a couple of months, you are guaranteed you're going to end up with nothing. Okay, so I think when you look at money, and we consider that gold is money, because it always has been, 6,000 years of evolution, aurum is the chemical element that is immutable before immutable was cool. I love Bitcoin. I think it's the best of fiats, because it's not backed. You cannot print more. The biggest shitcoin is the US dollar. But to me, right now in crypto, they're all shitcoins. So fiat functions as a unit of account, a medium of exchange, but since the unpeg of gold, it has been a very bad store of value. And as far as Bitcoin is concerned, the problem that could happen is that it's not technologically resistant, because if you were to do Bitcoin again today, you would have better technology to do so. So if you want to do something that is Darwinian in terms of technology, saying that Bitcoin is better than gold or money, then you should also be Darwinian within the technology. But I know I'm not going to make friends if I say this, so we're going to skip this. What we can say is that the best of fiat over 100 years, there is no currency over 100 years, none, that does not lose at least 98% of the purchasing power. Like I said, sometimes it's a couple of months and then it's done. So this is a real problem, and this is mainly due to mismanagement of money from central banks that are actually not independent. So we had the model of the central bank gold with reserves. So there are reserves in terms of fiat, so you have reserves based on other fiat. You also have gold. That was the central bank gold standard until 1971. But what we have now, is a central bank fiat standard that not only doesn't even, has defaulted on the IOU of the gold, so the central bank owns the gold, you don't. It has reserves in fiat currency, which is basically a Ponzi scheme. And not only it's a Ponzi scheme, but on top of that, you have fractional reserve system, which increases the Ponzi scheme. Right? So what we're trying to achieve, but I have nothing to sell here because our product is not available for retail. We do it institutionally for now. But maybe you can follow us, and then in August, September, we will be doing some announcements. So not only you have a fiat standard that is completely degenerate, and basically Bitcoin is pointing it out, but then also you have racks on racks on racks of Ponzi schemes where you have failure of FTX, failure of Terra Luna of making money, but the biggest stablecoins are backed by fiat or want to mimic fiat, which basically renders the entire system useless. And I don't think it's healthy, because if the purpose of it all is to have an alternative to fiat, then having the biggest stable coins pegged to fiat is an oxymoron. Now, we've seen problems at FTX and at Terra Luna where the reserves weren't there. And that's very important, because the moment you start questioning the reserves at the exchange level, you can withdraw, you can run on them, and then they collapse. But I think the biggest elephant in the room is that in blockchain, you can have, if you have self-custody, you can see the reserves of your Bitcoins. It's one-to-one, you have them in your wallet. So the elephant in the room is if you start questioning reserves on crypto, and you start questioning reserves in banks, then you realize that the problem is even bigger for banks. They don't even have the reserve, not only because of the fractional reserve system, but because they lend each other the money. So we have seen systemic failures on the banking system with 4, I think, of the 5 latest bankruptcies, because newsflash, we had the First Republic Bank collapsing a couple of weeks ago. So now you have Credit Suisse, who had failed, Silicon Valley Bank had failed, Silvergate has failed, Signature Bank has failed. And one thing important is that when it comes to stable coins, particularly USDC, Tether, it's racks on racks on racks of Ponzi schemes. So we've seen that cash and fiat is a Ponzi. On top of that, you're backing some of your reserve by commercial paper, by mortgage-backed securities, AAA bonds, and you're not even fully reserved. You're not even fully won, right? So I think, you know, it's important to remember that these model here, where you say, okay, there's 75% of cash equivalent. What cash equivalent means? Cash equivalent means it's either cash, fine, or it's commercial paper, it's discounted bitcoins, discounted shitcoins. When you look at the DAI, not only the DAI is a synthetic product, which composes of some of the others, which they themselves are not fully backed. So there is a systemic collapse. And newsflash, those reserves on those, they are deposits in a bank. When you deposit your money in a bank, it's not your money anymore. It's the bank's money. You're a creditor of the money. And some of the gold stable coins, the most popular, I'm not going to mention the name, also uses the financial system. So what I'm trying to say here is stable coins are everything but an alternative to the financial system. They're exactly even worse than the financial system, because you don't only have the exposure directly, you have layers upon layers upon layers of things. So what we're trying to do now with AgAu is you have a warehouse, okay, so a regulated warehouse, guaranteeing by auditors, you know, notaries, purity testing, and have all of the information on the blockchain. The blockchain is good at 2 things: transparency and immutability. Transparency so that you can see what's there, and then we show all of the bars. And then immutability, meaning that we cannot massage the numbers, we cannot go back in time and then change. So that's what we do. So we're trying to find a solution to this system, but I think we are in a very interesting time. The macroeconomic context, and there's a very good book about it, which is the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio, just shows you that not only there is systematic failures happening at the bank level, at the financial system that is essentially pushing on a string, reaching the end of basically the bubble of money itself. You know, it's tech bubble, mortgage bubble. Now it's literally a money bubble. But not only that, but also the dominance of the US dollar is over the long scheme being challenged as well. So proof of that, you look at the year 2000, where not only the dollar unpegged from the gold, it became a petrodollar, where everybody had to go through the dollar to do trade and commerce, balance of exports and imports, mainly because most of the trading was happening with the US and under US terms, with US law and with the US dollar. So you had to go through the US dollar to buy commodities in particular. Now fast forward, we're at 2020, and then not only they have in the meantime politicized the dollar, meaning that they made money political. So somebody can know if you, and then I spoke to CZ of Binance in 2018 at the United Nations. I saw him again at the 0.0, and I spoke to most of the biggest exchanges, and I told them, don't touch the US dollar. Don't take a US customer, because you do that, you're going to have the SEC, you're going to have the IRS, and then you're going to have the US Treasury Department basically owning you. And as a commodity trader, you know that, because BNP Paribas, for example, you have a letter of credit, you're trading with a country that you shouldn't be trading with, $3 billion of fine. So it's important to notice that this US dollar has been politicized. The SWIFT, the banking system has been politicized. And as a result of that, well, people are wondering, maybe next it's going to be us. Maybe they're going to decide whether or not we can trade or not. So now, not only you have that, but you also have China taking the biggest percentage of trade with Saudi Arabia. So even the petrodollar thesis is going away. So this is very important. A lot of people are even speculating, and I don't think it's only a speculation, that Brazil, Russia, India, and essentially the BRICS are developing a currency. Now, the problem with this is that at some point, if we continue, we're going to have to choose between the renminbi or the dollar. So pick your master. I think we're going to see a remake of the Cold War, where most countries are peaceful countries. They just want to trade, and they don't want to be owned by one or the other. And so the answer of non-political money, in my opinion, is gold. So we're based in Switzerland because of the so-called neutrality, and we hope it's going to stay the same. So with this, I'm inviting you to, follow us, because we're going to be doing a monetary war game simulation with CBDCs and currency wars, where we talk about private money, we talk about US, Western-led money, but also BRICS and China-led money. Perhaps there's going to be a move from the CBDC side, from the international organizations doing baskets of currencies. Libra was trying to do that privately, but then failed mostly because of regulation. But essentially, everybody's fighting for this for the rest of the world. Is the rest of the world going to align with one bloc or another? My hope is that the rest of the world will align with nobody, and then we'll take the private money way, be it Bitcoin, be it any of the other coins, but then really remove the monopoly of money from government. So my opinion, we're looking at a big deleveraging that is going to happen at some point. And when it all comes down and all reserves are gone, well, the track record of history is pretty crystal clear. You're going to have to deleverage, and when you deleverage, the one who holds the gold is the one who makes the rules. Yeah? So there is systemic failures and signs out there, from the failures of banks to the bank runs, to the counterparty risk, to the domino effects of every bank, to the possible economic collapse, to the deleveraging, to the war, to the de-dollarization. I think at some point, if you don't see it by now, then if you don't take action in order to protect the fruits of your labor, which is what money is about, then there's something wrong. So I urge you to take a look at that topic, and if you want to follow or if you want to know more, then you can catch me after, and then we can have a conversation. Thank you very much.